researcher encounter when he is working, collaborating with colleagues, when he has issues with, or he is dealing with personal data, or he's dealing with publications that goes into the direction of intellectual property rights. And here's also the place, I think, to mention the fact that we had a lot of support from the team from the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna. I mentioned already her name, Katerina Skanga, if I didn't, who is working in the Scuola. And they have a lot of team, and they have a team, and that worked. And in close collaboration, we worked on working this on having their theoretical framework worked out to the practical framework, so that it can be used by researchers, by people that are doing the actual work. Well, we were talking with legal people, so you had to do some translation. And it resulted in two booklets. The things you can find here, they're presented on the, I guess, the counter, the check-in counter. So have a look at those. Then Mentimeter. So this is the wrong one. So now I need to improvise.
Switch to the actual one. Okay.
Well, so
are we able to just share this one? Is it fine? Like this?
There's a number, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the idea is that if you have a laptop or mobile phone here and the network is free, you go to www.menti.com and type in the number 1950-5140. And then you will see a question. On the mobile phone, it's a little bit difficult to type a lot of answers there, but I'm hoping for some response. And the first question is just, let's say, a teaser. And but I'm still expecting you to send in some responses. And after that, we'll have two sets of questions. One set of questions deals with the legal presentation or the legally oriented presentation that we have afterwards on GDPR and IPR. And the second set of questions has to do with the national initiatives. But since this is only the test question, there's already a lot of response. We'll make this, we'll publish this somewhere in a final document, and Jan can use it in the final report as well. Okay, thank you so much. We'll go now to the first real question, but let's see if there is some interesting thing here. Data fairness. I like that. Transnational exchange. Yeah, sometimes this was for me a little limited. You know, I'm Dutch, and we only had to deal with 5 only outside, of course, in these collaborative meetings. We had other countries in there, but it would have been nice to have maybe a little bit more countries in Pillar. An opportunity to understand the EOSC framework. It's also nice that people have learned about EOSC within the project. First experience with an EOSC project as well. Okay, well, thank you. We'll go to the first question now. Yeah, it's also a little bit of teaser. Do you know the policy checklist that Pillar has published? Actually, it was retrieved 500 times, as I heard. Yeah. That's good. As long as yellow is smaller than blue, then it's fine. Okay, I'll stop now. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I know not everybody here is familiar with this, but I'm still asking the question. why are intellectual property rights? You have to think about publication things, right, of course, and data publication. Why are they important in your work? Some keywords, if at all.
Screen so we can see better.
Ah, great. Thanks. Now, I think it's time to ask the experts. Are they online? Is Katrina online and is Nadina online
Yes.
here?
Can you say hi, Katerina, just so we test your audio?
Hi, everyone.
Oh, we can't hear you. Maybe the technicians and the BNF can try once more. Can you speak once more, Katerina?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
But Nadina, feel free to come up here. We'll have more questions, so it's not just this one that you have to answer. Well, it's not questions, it's and Katerina, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Great. Wishing you hi. Nice to meet you. Yeah, it's the first time. It's also the so I invite you to sit down and or can you see them? No, you can't. Well, then you sit here with otherwise with me. Ah, there is Katerina. Great. But can she see the question? Nadina, can you see the questions now? Or the answers now? No, so come with me. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Anyway, so what I'd like you to ask, maybe not these ones, but there is more questions. Katerina, do you see some interesting remarks here that you can relate to in your presentation maybe later, or would you like to react to immediately?
I actually saw that there is quite a divergence in the answers which were given, because someone was saying that it's an IPRS, so intellectual property rights are an obstacle to dissemination, while someone else was saying that they are key for open access. So it's clear that there is an opposite perception to the role that intellectual property rights have, and some of them perceive them as a leverage for dissemination, some others as an obstacle to open science. I think that this is very interesting, both because of our findings in the mapping and in light of the checklist we made, which we will discuss about later.
Okay. Will you explain why this difference exists?
This difference exists because it's true that via intellectual property rights, you know who the author is, you know who the inventor is, you can get recognition, you can get remuneration, but often intellectual property rights constitute an obstacle to get access to the material which you need for research. You need to go through licensing, you need to go through transaction cost. So to negotiate the license, you need to pay for having access. Sometimes it's also difficult to find who the author is, or who gives the license. So you might get no access. There is uncertainty about the extension of the rights over certain materials. They are not the same in different countries. So all these elements create costs, create uncertainties, and they are enemies of open science, particularly in collaborative cross-border research. And that's the reason why we need to have clear guidelines on what we can and cannot do, and which flexibilities of the system we can leverage in order to avoid these obstacles. So for this, we have the mapping, and for this, we have the checklist.
Thank you. Very well. Do you see anything that you'd like to comment on? I can also move a little bit upward.
by the way, you can now also see the questions.
Now you can see the questions on the screen as well, but I'm not able to move it upward. Doesn't allow me.
Scroll.
Uh,
Oh, maybe you have to go. Oh, strange. Oh, there it is.
okay, right. It's a touch.
Two.
Two times.
Yeah, two touches. Okay. It's a great collection, and I think that this can be used also for follow-up research and follow-up research, Katerina there. So thank you for these answers already. Another question, or let's say where I'm soliciting for input here, is this one. Is there anything that you would tell fellow researchers, colleagues, if you need to handle personal data, what would you do? What is your first thought when you are dealing with personal data that you would tell someone who is starting there, or who has been or is moving things into different countries or something? Who said good? So it's interesting to, okay. Ah, great. Someone read the paper, right? Oh. Ah, exactly. Yes. Okay. Okay. Great. Anything that you see that's
Yes, the contact with the DPO is a very important issues concerning the use of personal data, or also health data, for example. And another aspect that I think is very, very important is the difference between there is a unique regulation at European Union level, but there is also difference between legal order of member states. And for this reason is very important the activity of cooperation between member states in project research in order to define the regulation and the legal framework for exchange of data in transborder activities. For this reason, the deliverable, the policy are very, very important. Also the contact with the expert concerning GDPR argument.
So is it true to say that if you contact some local expert, if there is a local expert, that should be the first person to address if you have questions regarding this? Not? Okay. So who should you contact?
Okay.
All right. So anything else from your side, Katerina?
Well, I see that there is a kind of a convergence in the awareness of what it means to handle personal data, more than what you see in the field of IP. And this shows you that there is probably more training on that, or there is more dissemination on that, or it's because we are directly aware of what privacy means in our everyday life, and not just as researchers. One thing is if you're a researcher, then your first point of reference is not the local expert necessarily, but hopefully your data protection officer, because they also know in detail the policies of your institution, the policy of your organizations, which might differ from the general baseline of the GDPR, and also what the rules of the research project you're operating in are. We will discuss this a bit more in detail when we refer to the checklist. Each part of the research activity has a different flow of data and a different set of activities that needs to be done. So let's try to differentiate, okay. I would say.
I'm looking forward to that. We will not dig into that now. And one other let's see if this is data protection. We have a question here. Yes. Maybe people can react to this personal data. We heard this morning already that, or this afternoon already, that in the new framework, there will be more attention to processing data, privacy sensitive data, how to deal with that. So maybe some of the answers that, or thoughts that come up have to deal with that, and then you can, the people that answer this question can then also apply or work on a new proposal within that call. Well, there's no option. Knowledge regulation. Okay. Regulation changes. So let me ask Katerina, do regulations regarding processing of personal data, do they change? Are they in flux?
It depends on what we mean with regulation, because we have a hard law that is harmonized at the EU level, and then we have a soft law or other type of agreement, which might be different from country to country. Technological standards and so on. So in fact, regulation, if we intend it in a multi-level way, yes, my impact on the processing of personal data.
Okay. So you can imagine that someone who looks at a regulation today in a certain country will observe a little change. I'm assuming this is a little change over time.
We are about to face huge reforms with regard to research data in the EU with the Data Governance Act and the proposed Data Act that still needs to be approved. So absolutely, yes, that's just the beginning of a big revolution ahead.
All right. So, yeah, comment, please.
Hello, mic test. Okay, just be sure to speak on mic.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I put the question there because one of the issues that can occur is that if the regulation changes, what does one do with the data that has already been collected and made fair? In that case, does one have to reassess that data? So there needs to be some, I guess, some mechanism in place to take into account that change.
Thanks for your question. Very briefly, the expected changes in the regulation, I'm referring to the EU law, so the European Union interventions are not going to impact on the FAIR ecosystem and on the FAIR principles. They may give more specification as to interoperability, but they will mostly go through standardization and a new way of opening data also in the hand of the public sector, even when they're covered by IP rights. So we don't have to be so much afraid of changes in the technical acquis in a way that we need to restart all over again. Absolutely not. At least this is my first impression seeing the proposals and what was approved in the DGA.
I hope that answers partly at least, and there will be a little bit more time for other questions. Maybe the presentation of Katerina and Adina will give you other ideas and ideas for posing questions. Okay, I'll move on. Thank you for these contributions. Nice layout here. Thank you, Rob, especially the colors. I'll skip this one. Just a second. Yes. Just don't answer these. We'll go to the next set of questions. I think it's time. Nadine, thank you. Sit down and follow the discussions here. Thank you. And then I'd like to invite also one of the speakers, Luciano Guido, here on the floor. Since we now can see what's happening, you can read the questions here. And Sarah, do you have time and also interest, of course, to help answering or commenting the phrases that the audience will throw on the screen during the next set of questions? Ah, yeah. Wait a minute. You can sit. Can you read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, it's just a problem. Do we still need Katerina on the screen? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and also the.
Well, Katerina, not so much.
Okay.
But but it would be nice if Katerina can stay because she's actually part of the panel and she will do the presentation later.
Does she need to be on the video?
No, not necessarily. No. Okay. So as I said before, there's two presentations. The last presentation will be on national initiatives by Luciano. And to set the scene, here are some ideas or thoughts that you can ponder about regarding national initiatives and the development of EOSC. And here's the first remark. I see you have a question, Luciano, already? No, all right. Because people are reacting to this question. So what is your take at what the national initiatives do for EOSC? And we'll ask Luciano and Sarah to comment on this.
So when we started thinking of the activities concerning the consolidation of national initiatives in this project, we were asking ourselves, what are the needs? And so this is what we ask you now to understand if we were on track. So I see that some of the answers here they're essential for integrating all communities and reserve performing organization in EOSC. And this was clear also to us. They are very important. They are able to finance actions in their country and foster the adoption of EOSC. This may not be the case for all countries because the funding schemes in the different countries may be different because there are different funding agencies and different mechanisms. But of course, funding is one of the major drivers for the national initiative and also for the EOSC activities. Do you want to comment? Okay. So then I see that provide country-specific points of views into the EOSC discussion. This could be brought to the EOSC through the EOSC Association and the steering board. Opportunity to create services faster, opening them to a larger audience afterwards. This is a bit more technical, but of course, there are two levels very important. One is the policy level, and the other one is the technical level. There will be a presentation tomorrow about the technical level, where we will show what are the results of our activities within EOSC-Pillar. And this is, of course, very important, although there are still some different feelings about what the EOSC is or should be. And this is one of the major issues, in my opinion. Capacity to represent the country at the international level. You have heard from Suzanne today about the concept of mandated organization. Who should represent the national interest in the EOSC Association, but this is at the policy level. At the technical level, it depends strongly, in my opinion, on what the different organization, the different initiatives and the reserve performing organization can bring in terms of technical services and make them available to a wider audience. I see.
Luciano,
Yeah.
do you think that do you see the answers or the words that the audience uses? Do you recognize these as important parts that you have also seen while working with the national initiatives? Do you recognize these things, or is there something new there?
Not really anything new. I think we saw all these things in terms of possible contribution, and also in terms of issues. There is one comment here: ensure information flow. This is very important, and this is what is probably more difficult, because there are so many actors, so many environments where more or less the same things are being discussed, that it is really difficult to have a clear and complete picture of what's going on. So maybe the information flows in a subset of the landscape, involving a subset of the actors who are currently building or contributing to build the EOSC, but probably there are still boundaries where the information doesn't flow. So this is, in my opinion, something that should be considered for the next projects, but it is very important. Sarah?
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes, if I may add something more about this analysis, that it's quite complete, is that these national initiatives has a double role from bottom up, so gathering feedbacks from the communities to the EOSC Association and to the European level, but also from the other verse. So the national initiatives can influence also the political level and the European level around the needs that are coming from the communities. So I see this important, position of this initiative.
Very well, thank you. Another thing is on the screen now. If you're part of an RPO, what do you think that is already bringing? What are you doing for EOSC, right? Or what is your organization doing for EOSC? Is it bringing services? Is it helping with maybe the task forces, the interest groups, services? Okay. Of course, you may also tell what you wish that your research performance organization would do for EOSC, right? So is Volker is contributing to projects? Is that something that is being recognized, or Suzanne? If institutes are, this is monitored as well. Yeah. Oh. No, I got a firm. It was affirmative, the answer.
So there are a lot of technicalities here. So a lot of people say services or activities or contribution to project. This is, of course, very important, because building jointly the EOSC is the main, should be the main driver of all our activities. Okay, I see also membership fees for the EOSC Association. Well, the fees are important, but I would say that more important is the contribution to what the EOSC Associations should extract from the needs at the national level to shape the EOSC. then projects, bringing in data. Data, of course, is very important, but as Volker was pointing out in his presentation today, we started from a situation where the main focus was on data only, but then the services were added because data without services to analyze them and are quite useless. The human network is also very important. Then what else? May you please scroll down a bit?
Yeah.
Ideas.
So I was also interested in the fact that this bringing in data, which is something that we as Pillar also did in the F2DS, right? Sure. Comment. Yeah.
Who wants to comment on this?
Yeah, sure. To bring data, but also training, researchers for bringing data in a fairness way. So this is something that also it is highlighted in the comments because, there is still a need to be trained in open science paradigm and in doing fairness data. And this is something that research performing organizations have to do. They started organizing training, but there is still a lot of gaps to fill, and so I see that of course bringing data it's the most important path for them, and to engage in local project to level up local infra to fair data. This also, it's very important because research performing organizations are in the ground everywhere. So it is important to build a network of providers who can push the data in this common platform and catalogs, and where the data are accessible and reusable.
Another comment is align among universities and with government on e.g. metadata standards. Standards, of course, are very important. I would say that, of course, at national level, it is important to develop and align to standards, but they should be done at international level because the standards involve all types of research institutions and data producers. So it's not enough, in my opinion, to be involved in such activities at national level only. They should be done, these activities should be done in an international environment.
Very well. I think, well, there's another question down there.
Engage local research infrastructure. This is the same.
Yeah.
Of course, at national level, it is very important that the national initiatives are well aligned with the international projects, international research infrastructures, but these should be done with an eye at the international objective. So in many cases, it is quite difficult that decisions can be taken at national level within an international cooperation, because of course the international level is more important than the national one. It looks like more or less the same as the EU and national regulation. But of course, it is important that who is acting at national level, the national initiative, and more especially the mandated organization, are well aware of all the different cooperation the research institution at national level have at international level.
Okay, thank you all for these inputs. And I think we'll go for the last statement now. That's this one, related also to the national initiatives. What are your ideas regarding? And remember, there's we will publish these answers, and I think they're direct input also for the higher level management, higher level governance of EOSC, maybe even the commission. Your answers are directly recorded. No, so this, no. Okay, now you see. So. So here we have the communication again, Luciano, that you mentioned before, right?
Highlight the benefits for research. This is very important. One of the issues we faced during the EOSC-Pillar project, but it is the same in the other regional projects, is that it is quite hard for some of the actors at national level understand what is the real value of EOSC, because there is an issue concerning communication, but the perception anyway of what EOSC is may be different according to what you are talking to whom you are talking to. So it may happen that if in your country there is a strong engagement with service provisioning or data provisioning, the perception could be that the EOSC is the environment where you can share your data, your services, find the services you need for your work. But in some other places where there is not such a strong involvement, the perception could be quite different, that the EOSC, for example, could be something defined at the top level with a top-down approach where the involvement of the actors at national level is not so strong or needed. So it is important that a common vision is developed, and we are working on this. Many people at the EOSC Association, the European Commission are working on this, but the communication should be improved to reach out all the possible actors to be involved here. So showcase the added values on the same line. Promote and train at local level. This is also very important because we saw that apart from the lack of communication, there is a strong need for training on EOSC, on open science, on what people can do with data, on the FAIR principles, and so on and so forth. But Federico was mentioning today that there will be a bunch of next projects in the Horizon Europe programs. One of these is called the Skills for EOSC, where training is one of the main focus of this project. So there will be a number of different activities related to this, and I hope that this will help. Then federal funding bodies should include a recommendation to align project outcomes with EOSC. Not sure what federal funding bodies are here, because we have the European Commission, then we have national funding bodies, but I cannot understand very well what federal means here. Anyway, the alignment of funding bodies is very important, and we did some activities with this respect in EOSC-Pillar. I will talk a bit about this in my presentation. Demonstrating scientific success stories based on open science made possible by EOSC activities, plus more communication at the researchers level. Okay, this is related to communication again.
Yeah, to me, it's interesting that the answers to these questions, Luciano and maybe Sarah, are more on the procedural side, right? On the top-down thing, where we before saw that if you want to bring EOSC forward, or then you should bring these services and bring tools. If you ask how you, I would say, well, if you want to accelerate development of EOSC in my country, then set up a service infrastructure or something. But that wasn't there. So, Volker, I mean, I'm looking at you because, yeah. How do you see this? Why would people first look at demonstrating the use of EOSC in a high level way, instead of saying, well, we need a method to archive data, or we need something to collaborate on the level of computing?
Well, I think it's sometimes a communication problem, right? People don't exactly know what the EOSC is, and then they say, well, but the whole vision as a whole package, I don't really get. So I think one really has to come with specific examples and then to engage and to say, well, what do you actually need for your research? And then, here we can help you. With all the other things, perhaps we cannot help you, but at this aspect, I don't know, AI or something, this we can really take off your shoulders. I think that's sometimes a bit, this engaging is sometimes difficult because the colleagues or the organizations think they have to buy a whole package, or they have to, I don't know, get a full life commitment that everything they do has to be part of the EOSC.
Yeah, correct. Completely agree.
Thank you, Volker. All right. You all can stay here, no problem. Of course, you're free to sit back, but since it's in the highlight, right? So what do? You want to retreat to your seat while we have the presentations? Okay, I'll leave you to.
Yeah, I will go back.
You can escape. Okay. Thank you. Yes. So now it's presentation from Katarina.
Okay, so I think she can share in any case directly from.
Yes. Share.
Okay, Katerina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
And are you sharing the slides? Because as far as I know, you just put them all together.
Yes,
Okay.
there should be in the slide deck.
Okay.
So if they're on the slide deck, I will simply say next.
Okay, that's fine as well.
Perfect.
Okay. And,
I'll go down.
Let me
I'll do it.
switch this to presenter mode.
Easy. Okay, so she was already on screen, but now for the proper introduction of Caterina Scanga. She's working at Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna in Pisa, and will present the first part of on the legal regulations with a focus on RPR, IPR, and GDPR. And in the second part, Nadina Falgetti will again come onto stage. She is working at CNR in Bari and has looked at the implications of these regulations that we analyzed in the gap analysis that we did, and that Katarina will speak about what that had for implications on the research. But first, Katarina, you can just shout if we have to switch to the presentation.
Sure, I will just
right?
say,
So
yeah.
it's not here. Oh, we still have the wrong presentation. Otherwise, I'll just
switch. To this one? It's not this one. Okay. If Katrina has it, maybe she can start sharing her screen.
I have it on my laptop, but let's. Can I send it over here?
Yeah, yeah, if you
Okay.
drop it.
Just a second.
If it's in my mail, maybe I can type it really quickly.
That's one. It has an attachment. The last one.
This one?
Yeah. it should be. No. Was this one that's sent to Federico as well? Yeah, that must be. Yeah, this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Katrina, apologies, audience policies for this little delay. But here is the first slide. And if the next slide is this one.
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, you can start here.
Wonderful. So if you can go back. So first of all, good afternoon, everyone, once again. And I'm really sorry not to be there with you today. I had my flights from Pisa, I had my hotel booked, but then my child, as it often happens, brought COVID home. And although the symptoms are not heavy, they still prevented me from traveling. But I see that this is really a wonderful lineup, and it was really a great experience for me to cooperate with EOSC-Pillar on this project. Now, very briefly, because I would like to get also a bit of time for questions afterwards. I see that there are many already. Briefly to summarize what we did together on the legal and policy side. First of all, we performed a comparative legal mapping of EU and national laws of the member states involved in Pillar. And we covered, as you will see, the areas that are the most relevant for research data flows. Then we performed a gap analysis, trying to understand which aspects of the current regulation, either because of their lack of harmonization or because of other reasons, were not really creating the best ecosystem for regulatory ecosystem for the EOSC activities and for the creation of a verified ecosystem of data. On the basis of the gap analysis, we compiled two documents. One, a set of policy recommendations for EU legislators and national legislators, and legal compliance guidelines for researchers, both in printable and in digital version. On top of this, and this is something that happened after we finished our mapping and reconstruction, a number of things happened, as I already mentioned before, at the EU level. The data package is now ongoing. There are a number of initiatives, regulatory initiatives that the European Commission has tabled in the past year and a half. I will give you just some snapshots to understand what we need to face, what's ahead, and which impact we'll have on our community work. And then Nadina will follow up with use cases, which will, as far as I understood, also nicely link with the use case exercise, which we will have later. Next slide, please. So comparative legal mapping, that was the very first activity. One step back. Yes, thanks. So the very first activity we performed, which was the precondition for all the other activities and deliverable, was the comparative legal mapping. You can find the full document online. The dataset is also available for your perusal. That was a collection and assessment of laws and policies from the European Union, and then from the countries belonging to EOSC-Pillar, so Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, and Italy. We selected just those regulatory areas which are the most impacting on open access and fair ecosystems, so mostly copyright, less patent, because of course you talk copyright and database when you talk about publications and open access to research results, and then all the regulation pertaining to personal and non-personal data. Next, please. The mapping was a relatively easy exercise in terms of collection on sources. It was more complicated to perform the gap analysis because each area shows different gaps, and it's very difficult to, to summarize those gaps in a nice and holistic format. What we can say in general is that we realized and we pointed out the fact that the system of copyright exceptions and limitation still makes it impossible for the copyright system to respond to the changing needs of research ecosystems, and particularly to the evolution of technologies. You see technologies running ahead, the legislator running afterwards, but never really able to follow suit in time. So you get long periods of uncertainties until finally you get an answer from the legal system, and until that point, the rigidity of the system doesn't really make it capable of addressing such challenges. Second problem which we underlined is that copyright contracts and copyright contract law are not standardized, which means that there is no real intervention on contracts with mandatory rules at the legislative level, which means that publishers can do whatever they want, even if what they want is not compatible with open access and open science principles. And you know that when you have a stronger bargaining party, which is in this case is the publishing sector, not having mandatory rules and not having them standardized in different member states doesn't create a level playing field and can frustrate public policy goals contained in other regulatory bodies. The third aspect is that the process toward open data strategy is not completed yet at the legislative level. And in fact, what we see that it's coming ahead is sort of completing this puzzle. And last but not least, and probably this is the overarching framework that should be the most worrisome at the moment, is that we still have legislative fragmentation at the national level. So there is no full convergence at the national level, not even in those areas that are fully standardized. And now to see them in more details, next slide on copyright. On copyright, what is the gap analysis showing? What are the regulatory constraints to open science? First of all, the scope and the enforcement of exclusive rights, so the rights that belong to right holders, reproduction, communication to the public, distribution, are not really clear in scope in different member states, and their enforcement is not even. Sometimes they are enforced beyond what their narrow scope is, or their general scope is, particularly when contracts chip in. On top of this, you have exceptions which are already fragmented, but they are also read strictly. So they are interpreted by national courts in a strict manner, and they are everything but flexible. So it's difficult to adapt them to something that is not explicitly specified in the law. As I said, these exceptions are not fully harmonized across Europe, and most of them are overreadable by contracts. So parties may decide to step over them in contracts. They can broaden exclusive rights. They can compress users' flexibilities. And then the notion of what can be protected by copyright is actually very broad, and it's indefinite, which creates legal uncertainty as to the scope of protection. And this is something that hampers open access and open science. Next slide, please.
Katerina, what can you try speeding it up? I'm not sure how far there is the next.
Sure, immediately. On personal and non-personal data, we have a fragmentation in terms of types of norms that are actually granted, that actually regulating certain areas. So for example, exceptions to data protection is sometimes protected by hard sources and sometimes by soft sources. The national safeguards, which are developed at the technical level, organizational measures, and so on, or think about the general research purpose exceptions, are not always converging. And what we have is a missing standardization in terms of technical standards that are required to achieve interoperability. That regards almost both personal and non-personal data. Next, please. So on the basis of this gap analysis, we formulated specific policy recommendations on the side of copyright law and personal and non-personal data protection law. So we invited the legislator to think about reforming copyright contracts, introducing mandatory exceptions and limitations, updating them in order to make them technologically compliant and compliant with open science requirements, and then look at them with more flexibility to make them a bit more capable of facing technological challenges. On the side of personal and non-personal data, we emphasize the need to harmonize pseudonymization and anonymization procedure, to harmonize safeguards for selected sectors like healthcare sectors and so on, and to develop organizational structure that is clearer and harmonized at the EU level. Next, please. You can see on the side of stakeholders that we produced a checklist which each researcher from our association can use in order to conduct the research activities from stage 1 to stage 3. So this is a checklist which you can follow both at a digital level on a website by clicking on it, and you can print it and do it on paper if you feel more comfortable in doing so. This is to guide you in managing research outputs, both vis-a-vis IP and data protection laws, in a way that promote best practices to achieve fair ecosystem, removing restrictions and facilitating also bottom-up convergence of national solutions. Next, please. The checklist is divided in 3 parts: from the research proposal to the implementation, once the proposal is granted, to research review. Time is strictly limited, so I invite you to have a look at the website if you have not done it already, and at the node where this checklist is present. Finished with the research results of the EOSC study until now, what's coming next? Next slide. Now we basically have in front of us 2 elements, 2 steps which were already made by the European Commission and one which is still ahead. The first one is the creation of common European data spaces. They are going to be data spaces regulated specifically by the Commission in a way that they see not only technical regulation to achieve better interoperability, but also to create a level playing field between public and private parties to have full openness and exchange of data, but also facilitating data altruism, creating forms of intermediations that help us exchanging data in specific areas. These common European data spaces will be regulated singularly, one by one. We already have the proposal for a common European health data space. The next is yet to come. So this will be an area where we all need to be trained in order to exploit at best all the opportunities that they will pose for open science. Next, please. The Data Governance Act is the second thing that came out after we completed the study. It's important, it's really important, because it basically fills in very important gaps which were present in the regulation on the possibility to share public sector data. Now they become available for reuse, also when they're subject to right of others. So if you have data, your research data, data from public administration and so on, which are covered by intellectual property rights or by rights of third parties, then now they can be opened, and they will be opened as soon as the Data Governance Act will enter into force. So be on the lookout. This is another step forward towards open science. One step after another, all the gaps which we realized are getting filled. And we also have innovation data governance tools from the side of the creation of data sharing intermediaries, shepherdizing your attempt to share your personal data to give them for research purposes to others, and data altruism. So the possibility to share data on altruistic grounds, again, through intermediaries. A lot is going on. The Data Act is about to be approved. We don't have further times to discuss this matter now. I thank you for your attention. I remain available for questions if you have any, and I leave the floor to Nadina for the use cases. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Caterina. Be sure to speak towards the microphone. Very close.
Okay. And the role of checklist, but I go directly to the use case. The use case, the first use case that we present, in which we have applied the checklist, concern the activity of task 6.6 of EOSC-Pillar project. In this context, the use case concerns the exploitation of reference data through our existing computing service for the bioinformatics community. The aim of this use case is to explore the possible interaction between already available Galaxy computing services and data repository in order to build an integrated and interoperable service for Elixir and the wildlife science user community as a whole. And the most important aspect concern, for example, the objective to access to external data sourced from different Galaxy deployment. And then the most important key aspect concern the need to ensure that health data security requirements are met throughout all the process. The use case operated in a transnational context because the partner involved are INFN, CRN, and ISERM. For this reason, we have taken into consideration the integration between European and international union law, and also the comparison between Italian law and French law concerning the data protection and intellectual protection right. In this use case, the working group has implemented l'Agnakea service. It is a cloud Galaxy instance provider based on Indigo Data Cloud software catalog. The key aspect on this service implemented are the dashboard in order to access to configuration and launch of Galaxy instance, a system of authentication and authorization in order to access to the service, the use of Indigo Pass, and another information most important is that the cloud provider are located in Italy and in France. There is a persistent storage with and without encryption. The legal framework described by Caterina has been applied and implemented in this use case, in particular in order to address these key issues. First of all, identify the condition concerning data protection and IPR at international and international in the context of national international regulation. In this context, the most important issues concern, for example, the difference between Italian and French legal order in relation to the pseudonymization requirement for health and genetic data. In France, in particular, it is necessary a third authority in order to guarantee the process of pseudonymization. In Italy, is not a requirement provided by law. Secondly, in the application of the checklist in this use case, the research have introduced an authentication system legal compliant, established a connection with DPO and TTO, take into account measures needed to the use of genetic and genomic data, and define a data retention condition process of reusability of data throughout the pseudonymization or anonymization. Most important aspect in the choice of the repository, we have used the repository compliance with the national and international legal framework, and we have introduced a plan for the use of data compliance with the EU and national law in the IPR context. All these legal compliance studies and the application of the legal framework and checklist are included in a publication available on Zenodo that is also a deliverable of this use case. The checklist has been translated recently also in Italian in order to improve the use in the context of the national research activities. One possible application concerns the project EGA, European Genome Phenome Archive. The European Genome Phenome Archive is a service for permanent archiving and sharing of all types of personally identifiable genetic and genotypic data resulting from biomedical research project. Data at EGA was collected from individual who consent agreement authorize data release only for specific research use to bona fide research. The most important characteristic of this use case concern that the study and the dataset can be browsed by anonymous users. Data access committee is responsible for approving access to single or of multiple dataset, and data are generally encrypted. It aims at solving the issues where sensitive data cannot move across border in application of GDPR, while public metadata can. Files will be stored encrypted in the local EGA, located in different countries, while public metadata stays at central EGA. The EGA is currently transition from a centralized resource management in the context of UK and Spain to a federated model throughout the federation system. This context implies that genomic data are distributed across several sequencing centers and also IT infrastructure for legal use case. The use case move in a transnational legal context, and for this reason, it is crucial to define the legal framework for IPR and data protection, and the definition of requirement for data acquisition and the requirement for data processing and storage data. In this use case, the application of the checklist is most important in this topic. For example, for the definition of the legal regime applicable to each research product, with particular regard to territoriality and cross-border activities. Check also the license office and the technology transfer office in order to charge of legal matters, to lay down international process for the protection and management of intellectual capital stemming from the project. Sorry. Make sure that the TTO or other office aware of fair principle and open science and open access best practice in application of the checklist, the research, look that data acquisition requirements are compliant. For example, check that there is the consent of the patent, the use of public dataset, or the legal compliance of the use of research output dataset. Another important issues concern the process of personal data extra-EU, in order to study the condition applicable for the use of at transnational level. And also the introduction of technical and organizational measures required to protect data flow in terms of availability, confidentiality, and integrity. And now in the future perspective. The future perspective of the checklist, also in the Italian context, aim to guarantee and support the implementation of guideline and checklist also in Italian landscape, in order to improve and support the research activity also in the context of the Italian Computing and Data Infrastructure, ICDI, that have also an interdisciplinary competence center, and applied improve the gap analysis for the compliance with Italian law in the context of IPR and data protection law, also in the file of the new regulation that European Union will adopt in the future. And the hope is to address the objective to define also at Italian level the policy and the implementation of the checklist in order to promote protection and openness. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you also for Katarina for another applause, because we didn't do that. And because of the time, I think we can accommodate only one question, either for the presentation before or this one by Nadina. Otherwise, we'll skip. Thank you again. And we'll go to the presentation by Luciano. Let's see if that works. There we go. It's up to you.
Okay,
Luciano.
thank you. So my presentation concerns the activities around the support to national initiatives in the EOSC-Pillar countries. So at the beginning, when we proposed this action, this activity within EOSC-Pillar, the landscape was very different, and we were a bit too ambitious because the title of these activities was coordinating the development of national initiatives, which is not really something feasible. Then we decided to convert this activity in the support to the consolidation of national initiatives. There are two different levels where this activity can be carried on. One is a technical level, and there will be a session tomorrow where I will present the results of this activity at the technical level. And the other level is the policy level, where different activities have been set up to support this consolidation. The first activity we did concerned what we were mentioning in the Mentimeter session before, the coordination among different funds. So the first activity was a study to try and see how the different funds can be coordinated or harmonized, specifically the European structural funds and investment funds and the EOS partnership. This activity has been carried out in collaboration with the ERA Learn project and the NIFOS regional project. There has been a webinar in July 2020 with remarkable attendance, about 100 participants. And then it was followed by an open consultation, and we got responses from 14 countries. The webinar can be seen at the link reported in this slide. What is the outcome of this activity? We provided some recommendations to ERA Learn and the regional projects involved, which are detailed in the ERA Learn document and summarized in a deliverable of EOSC-Pillar, specifically a deliverable for the 3 roadmap for consolidation national initiatives. The main recommendation concerned the requirement to explore the state of play of region concerning the smart spatial strategies. Then to set up a dialogue with the managing authorities to create a landscape for implementing funding in national and regional projects. Then to explore the establishment of regional networks in the Interreg initiatives for implementing parallel complementary projects. And then set up some bilateral collaborations based on memorandum of understandings in the different countries. For the consolidation of national initiatives, the starting point was the analysis of the status in the different countries. So to identify characteristics and peculiarities of each country. We wanted then to offer support for the definition and formalization of policies and governance in order to get a better representativeness in the national and European panorama, and also try to support the organization of bi- and multilateral discussions to exchange best practices, success stories, and so on. We did this by setting up a transversal task force. Transversal means which involves different activities within EOSC-Pillar. to collect the information. The process was to start from another activities performed within EOSC-Pillar at the beginning to early 2019, early 2020, where some information was collected by Work Package 3. Then we collected additional information through some interviews performed at this transversal task force. And then we defined a set of actions to support the consolidation of national initiatives. The Work Package 3 survey collected some information, and the results are reported in detail in a Zenodo document and are summarized in deliverable for the 3 I already mentioned. But the questions were high level and no specific information was collected. The outcome is that EOSC is already known or contributed to by a small number of institutions. But be aware that at the beginning of the project, the landscape, the European landscape, the EOSC landscape was very different. Then a lot of important things happened. So the landscape changed a lot. And so we needed to collect additional information and also to track the evolution of the situation in the countries where anyway some activities related to EOSC were already ongoing. So anyway, what we get from this initial survey was a list of institutions or people interested in EOSC. So what we did is to coordinate this consultation process through some interviews. We did 23 interviews in 3 months, from April to June in 2021. 5 in Austria, 2 in Belgium, 4 in France, 5 in Germany, and 7 in Italy, to collect information not only from the mandated organization. At the beginning, we were thinking of national initiative, but then when the EOSC Association was set up and it was clear that the mandated organization were playing a very important role, and the role was presented this morning by Suzanne, we converted our attention towards the mandated organization. But since the landscape in each country is very complex, we interviewed people, representatives from other national initiatives. So in deliverable for the 3, we summarize the results of these. There is a specific subsection in chapter 3.3 about each country, and these are the main results. For Austria, the mandated organization is ACONET, the NREN, but there is also an EOSC support office to support the participation to the EOSC. And we collected information from the institution listed here. For Belgium, things are quite different because they are a federated country where there are 2 components, 2 regions. Belnet is playing the role of the mandated organization at national level, but in Flanders, there is also the Flemish Open Science Board, which is the reference group for the participation to EOSC. In France, INRIA is the mandated organization, but there is also a supporting group, which is the Collège EOSC France, which coordinates the position of the French country into the EOSC. And we collected information from three other institutions as well. NFDI is the mandated organization in Germany, and the information been collected also from another institution with the Fraunhofer ESST. In Italy, the mandated organization is GAR, which represents ICDI. The reason why GAR is representing ICDI is because for the time being, ICDI is not a legal entity. It is planned to become a legal entity, but for the time being, GAR is representing Italy and ICDI in the EOSC Association. We collected information from the institution listed here. In this table, you can find an overview of the status of the national open science policies in the different countries. All the countries, with the exception of Germany, have a national policy for open science, but it is worth noticing that in Germany there are several other policies on open science, probably all at the regional level. France was the first country to set up this policy in 2018. It was updated in July 2021, and the other countries did the same in the following years, Belgium in 2020, and this year Austria and Italy followed. What are the actions we set up to support the consolidation of national initiatives? There are two main activities, two main actions. One is an indirect support. We thought that supporting researchers and service providers in the country could help the national initiative, the mandated national initiatives, to play an important role in the EOSC landscape. So the first indirect action was devoted to integrate the existing ambassadors program set up in the EOSC-Pillar project by adding some information which was not present at the time, to inform people on the value and benefits of EOSC. The direct action to support the consolidation of national initiative was to create a network among the representative of the mandated organization in the 5 countries contributing to EOSC-Pillar. The idea was to create this group, this network, to exchange information, best practices, to discuss the main issues concerning the participation to EOSC. And we did this activity, and I will show you what was the outcome in a moment. These slides shows the material already existing in the ambassadors program. We complemented this with 2 videos, which you can see at the entrance of this conference center. They are played continuously on a monitor. One concerns the connection with the EOSC through various activities, including the EOSC Association on one side, but also at the technical level with the contribution of the EOSC service providers providing services. And the second one, why should you trust the EOSC portal result? It shows people, which means service providers and researchers, what is the value and the quality of services onboarded into one of the catalogs belonging to the EOSC ecosystem, EOSC portal ecosystem. Concerning the second activity, the direct support, the network of mandated initiatives, we organize 3 meetings, 2 in April, the first one with all the countries with the exception of Austria, and then one specifically for Austria, and one with all the countries represented in September, to discuss the main topics of their interest. 2 topics were identified. One concerned the procurement of services and its implication. So the procurement action launched by the European Commission was a bit difficult to understand or to contribute to by the research performing organization for a number of reasons listed here. So what we try to discuss in this meeting is what is the ideas of the research performing organization towards this type of procurement action by the European Commission, because it is quite hard for several reasons listed here for them to participate to such actions. And what is important to understand is if there is some room for the research performing organization for this kind of procurement, or if this is something that is only targeting the commercial providers. Okay, I will try to speed up. Yes. The second topic discussed is the engagement at national level. It has already been mentioned today. So the idea was to exchange best practices and suggestions on how to involve the university. There are so many at national level and so on and so forth. Conclusions. So the landscape is heterogeneous. It is not a surprise. And many national initiatives exist in the EOS-Pillar countries. One of these, the mandatory organization, has a special role, but the other ones exist and have to understand what is their possible contribution to EOSC. So the open science policies are defined in all countries, mostly as national policies. In Germany, there are several different policies at regional level. And we performed several actions, the EOSC webinar, plus the survey, the videos, to complement the ambassador programs, the network of mandated organization, the contribution to the EOSC association, advisory groups and task forces, the task forces among the regional projects, and so on and so forth. And all these actions contributed to increase the awareness of EOSC in the different countries, to share the information and experiences among the members of the project, and support the connection of the relevant actors at national level with the correspondent actors at European level. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Luciano. I will allow a short question. A long question you have to address directly to Luciano in the break that will follow this session immediately, where a short question is allowed. Is there anyone who has, of course, I cannot guarantee how long the answer will be, but there will be coffee. No one here, unless I'm mistaken. Okay, well, let's thank Luciano, Caterina, and Adina again for their presentations. And we'll see each at the break. And Rob has some news there.
Yes, so now let's go into the break, maybe just to give ourselves a bit more time. So maybe we can start the next session 5 minutes later. So please enjoy some coffee, and I'll see you out there.
everyone. Test, okay. Okay, so for this session, we would like everybody to sit a bit closer if possible. Nobody will ask you questions, so don't worry. You're not going to get tested about your EOSC knowledge. Or maybe yes. And please note that on the last few rows, we have placed some spikes, so it might be dangerous to sit there.
Yes, please come up front. Please come up front.
And then perhaps I should start.
Okay, let's see.
How strict do we need to be with the timing?
Well, we need to end really basically the correct time. Okay.
Okay, well, while everybody sits, I'll just go with a brief introduction of what we're going to do in this session. As you've seen, we've called the session the People and Culture track, ensuring the participation of the community. And this is something that has emerged from the surveys. And as you've seen, nobody knows EOSC. And that was a situation, especially at the beginning of the EOSC-Pillar project and of the other regional projects. But in this session, we will showcase how EOSC-Pillar identified and defined these barriers of engaging research communities and institutions and all of the key players on a national level. We will share the approaches that EOSC-Pillar has taken in order to tackle these issues, and we will do that together with our partners from the project. I'll just introduce my colleague, Rob Carillo from Trust IT Services, Work Package 2 leader of EOSC-Pillar, as he will give an introduction of this session.
All right, so this time I am actually speaking. So good afternoon, and I hope you've had a lovely coffee break, but now we must get back on track. So this presentation is called Nobody Knows EOSC. It's very jarring, very shocking, but yeah, okay, it's not exactly right, but it feels that way sometimes. So why did we come up with this conclusion, okay, of Nobody Knows EOSC? Well, somewhere in the early part of the project, after the National Initiatives survey came out, we looked at the results, especially, at what do people think of EOSC. So a question was dedicated to how familiar are you with EOSC? And as you can see, actually, well, the majority, or at least more than half, have said not at all, and a quarter not very. So, okay. So as we can see, there's a low familiarity. If we go and look deeper into the survey and the respondents. So we have the first stage researchers, we have recognized researchers, established researchers, and leading researchers. So in any case, the familiarity is low across all levels. However, there is a sort of a trend, you see, as the seniority of the researcher goes up, there is an improvement. So this is an interesting trend that we see. Maybe we can tie it to some of the other data that the National Initiative Survey has found, which we'll see more later. So by discipline, what about the familiarity with EOSC by discipline? So it seems that the agrarian sciences have shown the most familiarity with EOSC at 21%. And this is followed by the medical sciences, and then the humanities, then the natural sciences, followed by social sciences, and then finally engineering at 3.45. So it plays between 21 to 3.45. So quite low. What about the familiarity by country? So here you can only see the 4 countries. The most familiar one seems to be Italy at 14.3% have indicated that they are familiar with it, followed by France at 7.2%, and then Austria at 5.3%, and then finally Germany at 2.5%. There is an interesting insight that came out, which shows that actually there is a disparity between the familiarity with EOSC on, let's say, the grassroots researchers and the individuals, and on an organization level. So as you can see, the familiarity on a individual researcher level is quite low at 8%, and this rises to 57% when we look at organizations. So some key points. EOSC is, well, not that nobody knows it, but it's largely unknown to the academic community. It is most familiar amongst the established or leading researchers. So I don't know, maybe we can draw some conclusions that, okay, maybe as leading researchers are a little bit more, let's say, attuned to the on the organization level, or maybe they have a very high seniority, then they're the ones that tend to be more familiar with EOSC. And then also the fact that agricultural and medical sciences are the fields that show the most familiarity with EOSC. There is also a large gap, as we've seen, in the familiarity between organizations and researchers. So some of the colleagues that conducted this survey have come up with some recommendations. First is to focus on spreading awareness about EOSC. And the second is engagement. So to build open science networks with researchers. And this is really a call to action for us in Work Package 2 to think about how we can better engage researchers and you really act on what we have found here. So I just want to highlight that this is a work that has been conducted, not necessarily by us, but by our colleagues in UniV and the Work Package 3, which focuses on the National Initiative Survey. So where can I find it? You can find it at the Austrian Social Science Data Archive. So the link is there in the presentation. You can easily find it online. And here are the people that worked on the National Initiative Survey. And with that, I think we can go to the next presentation. So let me just... Okay, so our next presentation is by Julia Geisberger and Marie Jurai from the University of Vienna. So they have been coordinating and leading task 2.3 on stakeholder engagement and have been instrumental in implementing the EOSC-Pillar Ambassadors Program. So now we will hear from them about this particular result of the project. So I'd like to call on Julia and Marie. There's some audio. Sorry, I think there's supposed to be an audio output from here.
Stories of data.
The Open Science Talk.
Set this up for you. Okay, screen please. Now it's floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for the nice introduction, Rob. I hope that all of you or many of you recognized the sound that you just heard, because it's the intro. It was the jingle of our podcast, Stories of Data, the Open Science Talk. One of the latest projects within our task 2.3. Together as a team that got bigger and bigger over the last month, we collected and created many stories of data. Some of them you can see here as screenshots. The website, some flyers and posters and podcast episodes. Also a screenshot of the video that you can see at the entrance. And yeah, to have a look at the complete output of our task 2.3, you can visit our website. If you're fast now, you can scan the QR code. Thanks to Trust IT, we also have a small exhibition of our output that you find outside at the registration. And on this slide, you see already the most important passage of this short presentation. We invite you to adapt our EOSC information package to your needs and share it with your network. Wait a bit, Marie. Our audience maybe doesn't even know what this is all about, so they might have never heard about the EOSC-Pillar Ambassadors Program. Well, they have, because Luciano was so nice to mention it. But yeah. Yeah, thanks. Right, you're right. Sorry, but I can't imagine that people here do not know about the EOSC-Pillar Ambassadors Program. So we will introduce it. Then we will report briefly on what we as a team achieved. Means we present our communication kit and a podcast. We will say a few words on what is planned to ensure that the work won't disappear when EOSC-Pillar ends in 2 months. And only then we are going to present how you all can get easily involved in promoting EOSC. Of course, we are happy to answer your questions at the end of the session. So Julia, please tell us why this task 2.3 is so important. Yeah, as you all know, open science is just science done right. But the question is, how do we get researchers to share and reuse the data? And how can we make open science the standard or the new normal? This is a question that I guess every task and every EOSC-related project is trying to find answers to. And as the title of the session suggests, the human factor, what we really need to consider is the people, the personalities, as Volker said earlier today. So yeah, the need to expand the open science community and to engage individual researchers and stakeholders for good. And that's what task 2.3 contributed to in various forms. We want to support everyone interested in open science to get a deeper insight into EOSC. The focus is on explanations and illustrations of EOSC, making its concepts tangible, especially for researchers. Therefore, our long-term goal is to raise awareness of EOSC. And for our goal of community building and stakeholder engagement, the idea of an ambassador program was born. The EOSC-Pillar Ambassadors Program aims to provide support to everyone who is willing to promote open science and the benefits of EOSC to their community, be it individual researchers or people working at research supporting or funding organizations. Because we need people, we need personalities to make the EOSC happen. In task 2.3, we are continuously creating and providing info materials and multimedia content that can be used for this purpose. The idea was that in every institution, there should be someone who knows EOSC and promotes it in their network. How? With the Ambassadors Program. But why there is no list of ambassadors, Julia? Because really everyone can be a potential ambassador. Everyone can contribute to making science open, and we want to support them with that. On our webpage, you can find more information and download promotional material such as flyers, presentations, posters in English, German, French, Italian, and Dutch. Here you also find the links to the videos of Work Package 4 that Luciano mentioned before, and our podcast series. All these materials should introduce EOSC and explain how researchers can benefit from it. Yeah, and we also had a contact form on the website so that interested stakeholders could contact us directly, share their experience, and get individual support concerning open science, because in this case, we think that personal contact is really important. The communication material was successively created and uploaded over the last 1.5 years. And on this slide, you see a few numbers concerning the usage of our materials. So, for example, the general poster was downloaded 267 times over the last year. So I think that's quite a few people that took some advantage of it. And in the last row, you see the use case flyer. We just uploaded it, I think, in August or September. and it already also got quite a lot of downloads. So I think, and I hope that people really like the materials and use it.
Our biggest project was and still is the production of a podcast. In Stories of Data, the Open Science Talk, we take the big challenge to answer the question, EOSC, what is it and does it pay off? So our goals are, first, introducing EOSC. What is EOSC? And second, more practical for researchers using or accessing EOSC.
And the aim of the podcast is to make EOSC more concrete and support the implementation of open science and fair data. We present practical examples and introduce some of the EOSC community's tools and services, because as also Volker mentioned earlier today, just with the vision, we won't convince anyone, but we need examples.
The podcast was first a collaboration with SHOCK. The Social Science and Humanities Open Cloud is also a project funded by the EU Framework Program Horizon 2020. Since SHOCK ended last April, the latest episodes focus now on EOSC Pillar contributions, and we discuss with Pillar partners the present and future of EOSC. So all in all, we present stories of data and EOSC, from the vision to the mission to the reality.
Yeah, here's just an overview of the episodes that have been released. We talked to quite a lot of people, and you may recognize some names here. So, for example, we talked to Paula and Inge about the research data management catalog, and you will hear more about it later today. And yeah, there are some more episodes that are work in progress, so stay tuned. Yeah, since EOSC-Pillar will come to an end in 2 months, we have been thinking about how to ensure the sustainability after the project ends. So obviously the content will remain online, and our material is publicly available at Zenodo under a CC BY license. So reuse is possible and also encouraged. And apart from that, we have cooperations with the community of practice that was initiated by OpenAir, with EOSC Future, with EOSC Focus, and yeah, everyone we know.
Talking about everyone we know. Yeah. At this point, we want to thank the whole Task 2.3 team and all partners for the great cooperation. So that
yeah, especially Federico and Rob, Emily. Yeah, you changed seats, so now it's difficult to find. Yeah, Emily, Sarah, Maria in Pisa, Beatrice, yeah, Marco. Okay, here you are. Vincent, Anita, Franziska, Lisa and Teresa from our team in Vienna, Andreas from SHOCK, and Veronica. Then of course Jos, Geneviève, Gilles, Volker, Rebecca. Yeah, sitting on a spike. Inge, Paula, Luciano, and Marie. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone else that we forgot now.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to work with you, and we hope our common stories of data will continue in one way or the other. And mentioning the EOSC community, we come to the most important slide of the presentation that I showed you already before. No.
We invite you to share the communication kit with your network.
We invite you to use the communication kit yourself and become an ambassador for EOSC and open science. And we invite you to support us with concrete ideas and contributions to the materials of the EOSC-Pillar Ambassadors Program. Oh, yeah. If you take one message from home from this presentation, we hope it's this one. Our project ends, but with your help, our stories of data continue. So once again, please reuse and share the materials. With this, we want to close our presentation. We are happy to answer the questions, any question you have after the session or anytime. Here are all our email addresses. Thank you very much for your interest and attention.
Thank you very much. So up next, let me just prepare my screen. Okay, so as you've seen, it's not all up to one person. It actually takes a whole lot of teamwork to really engage and promote EOSC. So apart from the work that Marie and Julia and all the other Task 2.3 members have been doing, also there are also other activities, especially with regards to communications and dissemination that we've been carrying out. And for the channels and activities used for community building, because that's what this work package is about. It's really the human factor of the EOSC. And it's really important to reach these people with a varied or diverse amount of channels and methods. So we have Federico Drago from also my home organization, Trust IT. He is the Task 2.1 leader looking after communications and dissemination. So Federico, everyone, please welcome him.
Okay, it seems to be working. Hello again. Okay, so probably I'm the person from which you've received the most emails in the project apart from Fulvio. Okay, so yes, I'm the task lead for 2.1, basically the horizontal activities for communication, dissemination and outreach. Basically, it means that us at Trust IT have been involved in pretty much all of these little things that we've done together in terms of communications to the outside, but also actually sometimes within the project itself, because as Marie and Julia were saying earlier, so sometimes not all of the work packages know what's going on in the other work packages. So sometimes that's also important for ourselves to basically take stock of what's happening in the project and then maybe adapt and reuse what we already have instead of then trying to redo things from scratch. So these are the pillars that we've tried to build our efforts on. As you can see, so basically there's the communication, dissemination and outreach, the interaction with EOSC governance, that's task 2.2, and task 2.3, as we have just seen. So these three tasks have always worked together. What we've done in task 2.1, basically we have used like a campaign-oriented approach. So the idea, so this is the idea of the genius of Rob, basically, that came up with this idea of having thematic campaigns that were related to all of the things that the different work packages were doing. And as you can see, they all had a clear goal, but of course they also had commonalities and they also had space for interaction. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through everything. I'll just give you an idea of what we have done together over these last 3 years. These are some of the channels that we've used. Of course, that's the website, social media, and so on. So the website, of course, was the central location for everything that was coming out of the project. So it was collecting links, collecting news, the events, the webinars, and all the things we've done. We have been updating it quite a bit over the last few weeks with all the new things that were coming out of the project. And we will actually do another update by the end of the project to give more visibility to the final results. And let's just take a quick look at different campaigns. So the first one was basically to give space to the use cases. So work package 6. You can find some links here. We've been working a lot with the use cases, especially in this last year, because of course they were coming out with results. So I've been bothering all of them with like thousands of emails every week, telling them, okay, so do you have news for your use case? Can we update the page? We have the new fact sheets and so on. So you have some links to the public things here, and you can actually see the use case posters in the whole. The number 2, which we've already seen some of the results about today, it was about policy and legal framework recommendations. So this is mostly what's happening in work package 4, but also in other work packages. So in this case, you can see there was all the things about the collaboration with the other projects, the workshops we have done together, the webinars, and the 2 files, which you can find here as well as have been presented by our colleagues earlier. The National Initiative Survey, which was the main output of the first half of the project, because of course it provided the grounds for all the rest that was coming after. So basically all of the things that Rob just spoke about earlier, and also Julia and Marie. So they came out of the findings of this survey. And of course we gave visibility to it. We did a webinar, there's the page. I mean, so we have tried to support the dissemination of it. Then there was this campaign for the support for onboarding services. So we have published some of the news about all of the things that were happening in this respect. And I think, as Luciano mentioned them earlier, I think one of the most interesting results we've done in this sense, and I think like also I see Beatrice in the audience as well. I mean, lots of people have contributed to these. The script was a bit of a long process, but then in the end, I think the result is actually quite satisfactory. You can find the links there. And of course, I mean, so these slides will be available. So it's like a mine of links. So you can go there and you can just reuse them for whatever reason. So promoting the open call for services. So this was mostly done with Lisana and Sabine. Basically, the idea was to promote this open call. And then we managed to support 5 services, 3 of which even ended up to be onboarded on the EOSC portal in the end. There's also a poster about them in the foyer, and you can find some information here. Then campaign number 6 is just like probably the largest, because this is basically pretty much everything. So it's communication support for stakeholder engagement activities, which of course include the ambassadors program, which we've already talked about, but it also includes all of the materials we've prepared. So like promotional visuals for third-party events, support for webinars and workshops, promotion of activities for the other work packages. And I think one of the most interesting outputs that we've done as work package 2 is probably like the annual reports. So there was the first one and the second one are already out published. You can find them there. And who knows, there might be a third one at the end, in which we collect all of the final results of the project. And then the 7th campaign is the support promotion of fair culture. So this was done, of course, for example, for the training and support catalog, which has a page with all the links on the website. We did a webinar. We supported so for example, the promotion of lots of the events, of training events that have been done, for example, with ICDI, with DICE, with First Fair. So there's lots of other initiatives that we have worked together and we have supported in the promotion of which. So all in all, I think that what we have managed to do with EOSC-Pillar, I mean, we were starting as the presentation earlier this afternoon have demonstrated. Basically, it was a difficult landscape because, of course, like not everybody knew what we were doing at the beginning. So like EOSC was still a relatively new concept for most people, and we managed in the end to gather so this community. It's actually, I think it's one of the largest communities in the EOSC related projects in terms of like online following between like LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. And we've also created this page on the website in which we show stats about who is part of the community. So if you want to go on that link, you can go and check. I mean, so you can find, I don't know how many people from Austria, from Germany, and so on, from the different communities. So what are the lessons learned? First of all, teamwork. because of course, I think that that's what made most of these results possible, because of course, like without cross-work package collaboration and cross-team collaboration, most of these would have been impossible. So that's probably one of the most important takeaway. Then something that emerged from the EOSC-Pillar Ambassadors program in particular, but also from the early stages of the project, is that it's sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's actually very useful to have materials and activities carried out in the national languages, especially for the countries where EOSC is very new, where open science is very new, and the community is not very familiar with it. Then what we are bringing now, like what we're carrying on as a legacy, of course, is an engaged community, which the new Horizon Europe projects will be able to tap into. And of course, the interaction with other EOSC initiatives, which was probably, as it was mentioned earlier, with the Infra-EOSC-5 collaboration being like a test bed for all the future collaboration between projects. I think this can be an example for how to do things better as well in the future. So thanks, everyone. I'll see you in a bit for the for the final session, but I'll just give the word back to Rob.
Thank you. Round of applause. Okay, so we'll now move forward with the next presentation, which is we continue with the trend of me presenting my colleagues' work. Although this one is quite dear to me, and it's quite an honor to present this next presentation, engaging the EOSC governance and national open science actors. And I managed to develop this presentation with the help of a lot of the colleagues of Laura Perini, who has been the task leader 2.2 in charge of this body of work. So let me just put up the presentation now. Right, so building our relationship with EOSC governance and related initiatives. So this is under work package 2, which is the human factor of the EOSC. So far, you've heard from the other task leaders, the task activities within this work package. One was on stakeholder engagement, and that along with task 2.1 brought forward the ambassadors program. We also have, of course, task 2.1, which is the communications and dissemination task, which handled also, promoting what the project has been doing. And this one took care of our relationship with the EOSC governance, and as well as what related initiatives are these? These are the national initiatives, but also relevant EOSC projects. So when the project started, it was a changing landscape. Despite the changing governance landscape, we still had to ensure two-way communication between the EOSC governance, national initiatives, and the relevant EOSC projects. And we had to do this because in the governance bodies, they were looking for expertise, subject matter expertise, in the working groups, in the task forces, in the advisory groups. And this is normally found, in a lot of the projects or even the national initiatives. Also, national initiatives needed to be supported. They need a platform or a network that links them and harmonizes activities, what's happening on the European level. Also, you have an ecosystem of EOSC projects. And, these projects work on their individual things. But some specifically for the scope of EOSC-Pillar, these projects also needed a reference point for the implementation in Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, and Italy. EOSC-Pillar itself also needed to harmonize the work that it was doing with the directions the EOSC governance was taking, and this is to ensure that the work would remain relevant. So the approach was we mapped the EOSC ecosystem, so the governance, related projects, national initiatives, meeting with representatives, identifying what is relevant and what is important and where we should have input. And to ensure input, basically this means putting forward representatives. So sometimes working groups, yes, they're open to project representatives, but for some that are not, usually it's on the basis of, for example, your personal involvement. So we identify potential contact points. So sometimes these EOSC-Pillar Consortium members are, of course, they're experts in their own right and have been invited to join these important forums or groups. And at the same time, it was important to keep track of the relevant discussions and opportunities where we can influence or harmonize with what was happening in those groups. The task 2.2 kept a file within work package 2 of key contacts and reported the relevant discussions during our meetings. So this ensured that the project was aware of what was going on in all these fronts. Also, snapshots of the relevant reports and contributions. You can find all of this in deliverable 2.3 and 2.4, status of the relationship with EOSC governance and related initiatives. So, as mentioned, it was an ever-evolving landscape. So it's, as you can see, there was the EOSC governance. You have there, two eras, if we may. So the EOSC Secretariat supporting the governance board, executive board. You have the 6 working groups back then and several interest groups. Then once EOSC Secretariat ended, there was a transition to the partnership, European partnership era and the EOSC Association. Then we have seen the setup of the 5 advisory groups and its task forces. On the other hand, you have on a national level, national initiatives coming up. And then at the same time, almost in parallel to EOSC-Pillar, you have other regional projects that are doing sometimes the same things, sometimes things that are different or have a different scope. Apart from that, there were also other EOSC 5 projects, which not necessarily geographically focused, but rather more horizontal. Or you also have EOSC implementation projects such as EOSC-hub, Enhance, and Future currently. So we have made significant contributions to a lot of the different working groups. I won't go through all of them, but you can see that for each of the working groups, we did have somebody there who was either an EOSC-Pillar representative or somebody who was tied to the project somehow or related to the project. And then when it turned into the EOSC Association, we now have the advisory groups. There are also some members that we have identified who essentially were keeping us informed of the developments in each of them. So as you can see, their names are over there. It is important to note also that membership, specifically for the advisory groups, was not based on project input. Compared to the previous one with the working groups and their EOSC Secretariat. So it was based on personal expertise. And while there was no official project representation, we still had some EOSC-Pillar Consortium members involved in these. So as you can see, their names are there. It is also important to note the role that EOSC-Pillar took in this initial phase of the setup of the EOSC Association. So EOSC-Pillar members participated in the establishment of several advisory groups. In fact, 9 out of the 52 task force coordinators actually came from EOSC-Pillar institutions, and even 5 more actually came from ICDI, which is the national initiative within Italy, with very close ties to EOSC-Pillar. So they were ICDI affiliated institutions, and these people developed the task force charter. So it's already from the very beginning, we already had that input. It's also interesting to note in the early stages, when the EOSC Association was being set up, ICDI was one of the founding members, represented by Federico Ruggieri. And then eventually board of directors were elected, and then a number of EOSC-Pillar related people, or at least from the countries, were also involved there in the board of directors. So throughout the development of the EOSC Association, the project has kept in close contact with these board members, especially from the EOSC-Pillar countries. In fact, you can go to the website and have a look at some of the initial interviews that we did with them, and their vision and their what they see moving forward with the EOSC Association. Also interesting to note is the steering board. So work package 2 and task 2.2 kept track of the transition from the governance board to the EOSC steering board, which represents the member states. EOSC-Pillar consortium members were even directly present in the steering board. So you can see the members over there, some actually as the main official member and some as supporting or the deputies. Another important thing to note in this body of work is the collaboration with the Infra EOSC 5. So a memorandum of understanding resulted in the cross-project collaboration board and its task forces. So this involves EOSC Synergy, Pillar, so Nordic, basically the regional projects, including EFOS Europe, also expands Fairs Fair, EOSC Secretariat. So basically the MOU was designed to support the EOSC governance. So as part of this body of work, a joint activity plan was developed, which resulted in some task forces, these 6 task forces, where the projects had a representative. So actually, in some cases, even some of these task forces have also extended the collaboration to other initiatives and projects not previously named. So let's just go through some of them. So for example, in the landscaping task force, some of our contributions was the chairmanship of the task force, the work package 3 survey methodology. You can see the members on the screen, and you can see some of the contributions that resulted in actual real world results. In the Fair Data and Infrastructure Task Force, some of the contributions here are the Federated Fair Data Space, the Data Repository Compliance Service, study on common metadata and ontologies, help desk service, providing also training and documentation and fair tools and fair data, and also the deliverable 4.1, which was mentioned in the earlier session. There's also the Service Onboarding Task Force. So this was also chaired in the second term by Luciano. And we provided also input to the requirements gathering activities. If I'm not mistaken, it's led by EOSC Enhance. And it ensures awareness on the need to, basically one of the main contributions to the project was we highlighted the need that we highlighted the need for them that we need to interoperate with the EOSC catalog, and we triggered a discussion on the guidelines for onboarding national catalog operators. We also did a workshop actually as part of this. We also have contributions to the national policies and governance. So of course, this is also chaired by EOSC-Pillar at some point. Policy harmonization across regional projects was also one of the contributions, and as well as the 4.1. In Training and Skills Task Force, this was also partly chaired by EOSC-Pillar. We contributed the EOSC-Pillar training and skills approaches and methodology, as well as the pilot courses on open science practices. And finally, the Communication and Events Task Force. So we also chaired this one. Here we coordinated the development of the joint video. We organized a number of sessions together, webinars, workshops. So EOSC-Pillar was actually a catalyst in a number of these joint initiatives. Of course, the EOSC-Pillar Ambassadors Program, one of our main results, was contributed to this task force. So task 2.2, along with 4.3, consolidation of national initiatives, supported national initiatives which have become more relevant now with the EOSC Association. So it provides also a special role to mandated organizations which represent countries in EOSC. So we've previously heard in the previous session. So here you can see some of the contributions to the various countries and to the national initiatives. For example, in Austria, the establishment of the national initiative was actually supported directly by the project, especially in the development of the MOU, which is the basis for the setup of this mandated organization and the collaboration of the institutions under this. There was also effort actually directly provided to this for this initiative through the working groups, and the University of Vienna has been active in that front. Also, we contributed knowledge. So the National Initiative Survey helped identify partners and stakeholders and provided e-infrastructure policy and funding insights. There's also engagement. So contributions to stakeholder engagement in the national level through the EOSC-Pillar Ambassadors Program. And also the direction of this initiative. So UNIV identified EOSC, open science, fair data as high priority areas, and thus working groups were established for these. Next, we also have in Belgium, this one has been more on monitoring the developments, fostering a network of key players on a federal and regional level, and encouraging the participation of institutions in EOSC supporting activities. So Belnet is a mandated organization, as we've heard previously, and we can see the unique situation of Belgium where engagement actually has to go on a regional level. So also the participation of Belgian organizations is tracked in EOSC-related activities, as well as membership in the EOSC Association. And then there's also keeping track of the national level coordination. In Italy, so basically here, we have EOSC-Pillar Italian partners made up the first collaborators of the ICDI. As we see now, that's becoming a very important, let's say, actor on a national level. We also monitor the participation of Italian organizations in the EOSC Association, and also the co-organization of ICDI, EOSC-Pillar Fair, Open Science, and training webinars. In the other countries, it's also been, let's say, we have appointed several country liaisons, and there we basically monitor the developments and we try to encourage the participation in EOSC supporting activities. At the same time, we also promote a number of national events where necessary. So to conclude, basically, regarding the EOSC governance, so the executive board, the EOSC Association steering board, etc. So EOSC-Pillar had strategically contributed to EOSC, to the EOSC executive board working groups work. In the EOSC Association, project members have played a key role in the setup of the current governance, and contributions are seen from the highest levels up to the expert group level. For the Infra-EOSC 5 projects, through the cross-project collaboration board and its Infra-EOSC 05 task forces, the project has contributed to the harmonization of efforts across regional and relevant EOSC projects, and it even played a coordination role in many ways. So it's been a catalyst for a lot of these joint activities and harmonized actions. In fact, collaborative work actually continues to this day, even without the support from EOSC Secretariat. So that's quite interesting. On a national initiatives level, different approaches were needed to be understood to see where EOSC-Pillar can support, and where support was needed, the project provided. For the rest, we monitored and kept up to date. So to conclude, I would see that the key to ensuring the consultation with the governance, the EOSC projects, and the national initiatives is firstly to really understand the landscape. Then also the formal and perhaps just as important, informal networks. So it's not always where the project has an official representative in a body. That's where you'll provide the most impact. Not necessarily. Even for your informal networks actually have been quite useful in our work in ensuring that we're in harmony with what was happening outside the project. And then, of course, having done that, then you'll be able to provide relevant input. For a more detailed overview, I invite you to please have a look at the EOSC-Pillar Deliverable 2.4, which is the second report on the status of the relationship with the EOSC governance and the EOSC-related initiatives. So the link is there. Finally, I'd just like to especially thank Laura Perini, who has been the task leader of this. Actually, when I was creating this presentation, I was looking at the project photos during the kickoff, and I managed to find a lovely photo of her at the start of the project. So of course, this has been a humongous effort. Thanks to Task 2.2 and the Task 4.3 colleagues, as well as the authors of Deliverable 2.3 and 2.4. You can see the names over there. So with that, I end, and thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so right, so for the next, I'd like to call on Inge and Paula, who will be providing a presentation on training and user support approaches. So they've been involved in this task of the project. Yes, so let me just put up your presentation. Okay. Basically, so make sure to speak on the mic and use this to flip through.
This one, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and good afternoon. So it's only me, Paula, but I'm presenting on behalf of not only Inge, but other colleagues that have been working in the catalog, which was mentioned today. So with this presentation, I'm sorry, this is not made for short people, but I have to look at the screen and the micro. So I hope to be able to, well, you know, about what the catalog is and why we made it, and also talk a little bit about the challenges that we face and what we did about it. And maybe as I don't think I need to say a lot about what the objectives of EOSC pillar were, but maybe just to frame the catalog within the project, there were some of the challenges that were addressed were related to the skills gap, how to make our researchers be ready for EOSC or to contribute to EOSC, etc. So this is a bit where there were some tasks related to training and skills development, and this is where the catalog sits. Also, we were at the moment, and when we started, there were many institutions that were starting to create or to recruit data stewards. So this was then an emerging profession. There were also other numerous projects which had the uptake of FAIR and the narrowing the skills gap as one of their main objectives, not only in Europe. So we have all the regional projects, FAIR, but also outside Europe, there were also many other projects which had these objectives. And so we started to see that there were more and more training materials and support materials related to open science, FAIR data, research data management in general. But we saw that these were really scattered. They were not easy to find. And so we thought there was a lot of value in making a catalog, curating them, giving them the visibility, describing them with standard metadata, and so make them more findable, more visible, and having like a central point of access for all of these resources. I think it's important. We focused basically on data stewards. So all these people that were starting a role that was not yet so professionalized, this was our focus. So how can we help them help researchers and support researchers? But actually, so it's more focused towards data stewards and or data librarians sometimes called. But there are many actors who have a role in research data management or in making data fair and open. And so really sometimes the target group is much more than data stewards. I think also another interesting thing about the catalog is that it's and therefore the name is not only about training material, but we thought it was really valuable to include other types of resources that are more operative in the day-to-day. So I think, for example, a checklist or a decision tree, so things that you can readily apply or use with a researcher. So I think the legal compliance checklist is a very good example that is already in the catalog. So something that you can or either point to a researcher or sit down with a researcher and run through the checklist and come to a conclusion or to a decision. So not always following training is going to be maybe the best solution for the specific scenario. This is a screenshot of how the catalog looks like. So you have, well, it's a catalog basically. So it has a searching environment, and then we use the standard metadata that we have collected too. You can use it to filter or to narrow down your search. Maybe I won't go a lot into detail about the technical specification because it's basically also operated by the D4Science infrastructure, and I think there will be a lot about this tomorrow. I think what's interesting is that this allowed us to have a custom metadata profile, and we will talk about this in a minute. But also, well, there's a lot of work in how we can make training materials fair, and the infrastructure also has all these fair enabling features. So it gives pure persistent identifiers, well, resource locators. It has the possibility to provide a structure or a standard metadata. It's interoperable with other systems, so fair enabling infrastructure. as I was saying, it is possible, or it was possible to define a custom metadata profile. So something that was specific for our community, so training material community. And so this is what the metadata model looks like. So you have some common metadata, and then you can specify different metadata items, each of them with different fields. So when we started, we were thinking, or we had to decide, okay, so what metadata actually describes or defines a learning resource? And we didn't want to start from scratch. So we started looking into other projects that were already thinking about this. At the time, the most or the best thing that was out there was a deliverable from the First Fair project. We knew it was work in progress, but this was the best that we had. We knew it was already getting closer to more or less a final metadata profile. But this has been an ongoing thing that we have to follow during the project. So during the project, the RDA interest group on education and training for handling research data, they've been working on this for a while, and they provided this minimal metadata set for the discovery of learning resources, which then has been in turn adopted by EOSC-Future. And so we have been recently working into mapping the metadata profile that we have to the current, or the one that's been adopted by EOSC-Future, which is in turn the one from the RDA interest group. And so this is, well, a table. We recently presented a paper about this, so there's more details if you want to know about it, but we have been working on mapping, and especially focusing on the profile or on the metadata elements that we have not yet included in our profile. But good news is that they're already there. We are now working into updating the current records that we had in the catalog to this current schema, but we're doing progress on that. And metadata was actually not our only challenge. I have to say that we were not the only ones having this idea about cataloging training materials. In the last years, there have been other training catalogs that have been developed. They have sometimes different, maybe discipline scope. And so we have been regularly engaging with these other projects or catalogs, and discussing different challenges. We actually had a workshop during the Open Science Fair conference only to discuss challenges for training catalogs. So metadata was one of them, but control vocabulary, sustainability. And I want to say a couple of words about quality assurance and curation process, because this is also a common challenge in catalogs. So how do you actually decide what has to go in the catalog, who curates the material, because this is often done by small teams, so there's some degree of subjectivity, etc. So we set up a task force within the open air community of practice, and we have recently developed a sort of checklist. It's quite basic. It's not a really long document, but it really has a checklist of what needs to be in place to have this curation process. It actually works in 3 different levels, starting from the creation of training material, but this is not our scope. For us, is the other 2 modules that are important: the selection of learning materials and how to curate metadata of those training materials. And so now we're we drafted the document. It's already closed for comments, but you can see it there anyway. And now we're working into adapting this into the EOSC-Pillar specific setting. And maybe some words about our community. So we have more than 150 members registered for the catalog. So some of them are quite regular users. We have had regular users actually, but we also see sometimes peaks after events. We try to do a lot of outreach events. So Federico mentioned the webinar, but we'd also participated. For example, we co-organized a training with First Fair, an instructor training, and the participants were asked to develop a training session, and they were asked to look into the catalog to see whether they could already reuse existing materials. So after this type of events, we often see these peaks. But we also use these events to gather feedback from them and how we could improve the catalog. And so just some words about what we have left to do with the little time we have. So we are still working in this mapping exercise between EOSC Future, well, the specification of EOSC Future and EOSC-Pillar catalog. We want to keep adding records as much as we can during the time that we have left, and then adapt the quality criteria, the quality assurance checklist that I mentioned, and then of course a deliverable. So that was it for me. Don't know if there's a question or no.
Thank you very much.
Prova. Test. Is it working? Okay, perfect. Okay, so while we get the stage prepared, I would like to call on stage these people. So I have Volker Beckmann, then Christian Cociniello, Susan Dumuschel, Minna Lappalainen, Philip von Hartrott, and Inge van Neuerburg. So what we are going to do now is something quite unusual for an EOSC-related event. I don't think I've seen it at other EOSC-related events. So you are going to see some things appear here on the stage. So 1 second. Okay, so basically what's going to happen is we will have 4 options here on the stage, and we will have our 6 panelists. So first of all, welcome everybody. Welcome back. For some of you, welcome to Minna. So we will have these 4 options, and I will read some statements about EOSC, about engagement in EOSC, and our panelists will basically walk in the area that indicates their position. So if, I don't know, if I say everybody should get free pizza at the end of this meeting, everybody will stay here, I guess. So, and then there's the 4th option that we're gonna take, which is strongly disagree, as you might have guessed. So basically we'll have these 4 options, and I will read some statements, and you will stay there, and basically we will hear from some of you who want to say something on that specific position. So maybe, I don't know, if you strongly disagree with something, then you can also, of course, explain why, and we can move from there. So in the meantime, I will take this. Okay. All right. Yeah, you can come over. Yeah, of course, there's no right answers. I mean, of course, like Volker's here, so maybe he will speak for someone. Okay. Do we have everybody? Yes. Okay, perfect. Back. Okay. Perfect. Can you open? Can you open? Yes. Okay.
Yes. So maybe they can start already in the middle.
Yeah, so maybe exactly you can stand in the middle in the meantime, and then basically I'll read out the statement. I mean, I think we will skip some of them because I don't think we have time to go through all of them. But basically, when I read the statement, then you can just stand like in the place you want to stand. Of course, you're not allowed to stand in between lines, so you can't stay in the middle. You have to take a position. So that's the whole idea. So we even removed the somewhat agree option because we wanted you to take a stance. Yes, exactly. But if I showed aspects, so maybe I can use this. Thank you.
Just a reminder also to our online participants, you can join our Spectrum session as well if you join us through the link I've sent in the chat. So you don't have to press anything, you just have to move your cursor to where to your position, whether you strongly agree or agree. So you wait for the instruction of the chat.
So can you show the screen in the?
Yeah, let's
see. So at least we also see what's the audience doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the meantime, I mean, just to get started, I'll just read the first statement so that we can see how it works. So, okay, so EOSC Association members should take the lead in promoting open science culture in their home countries. EOSC Association members should take the lead in promoting open science culture in their home countries. Okay, we have someone who disagrees. So Inge?
It's mainly the word "the lead." I don't think EOSC Association members are the only ones. If you look at countries, there will be others that take lead as well. So I don't think that the lead will be EOSC Association members.
Okay. Does anybody in the strongly agree section want to say something about it?
Of course, it's always a collaboration, but I think that somebody has to take the lead.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks. So I mean, so you've seen how it works, right? And we can see, so basically from the people joining from home, or if you have, I don't know, like your computer there and you want to join as well, basically you just have to move your cursor in the area that you want to choose, okay? Okay, so let's move to the next one. Let's see if everybody sees. Okay, so researchers don't really need to know about EOSC as long as it works. Okay, I really want to hear from Philip on this one.
So if we look at the researchers, the customers that we want to reach with EOSC, they are, how should I say, they are typically deciding where they will put their data, where they will get the resources from which they work. They have to trust EOSC in order to make this choice. And this is why they have to know EOSC well and have a good confidence that they will be taken good care of at EOSC.
Okay, thank you. I think Suzanne wanted to reply.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that actually most of the researchers already work with their national repository or even with European research infrastructure. So what is the most important for them is to be able to rely on this kind of organization, and then this organization can work and collaborate with the EOSC. So at least this is my view, but I'm open to something else.
I'm interested in listening to Christian's position on this.
Yes, it sounds strange that someone from the Commission disagrees on making EOSC almost invisible. No, I mean, we have the example of GEANT, okay? I mean, I think that when I left the Commission in 2013, I asked around who knew that the universities were connected through GEANT, and they didn't know. But one thing is the network service. The other thing is EOSC. EOSC requires also the knowledge of doing certain things. For the time being, I mean, we cannot really talk about EOSC as European Open Science Commons because we don't have the commons yet. They are not the attitudes and practices of open science are not being embraced by everyone. I mean, it's not automatic that a researcher makes his own data sets fair. So they need to know that they are doing that because their data will be findable, accessible, interoperable through also an existing effort of federating the resources. And in this case, if we want to accelerate open science to be the new norm, and if you want to, let's say, engage more funding to implement a better EOSC, we need them to know what EOSC is. I mean, it's a marketing thing from my point of view, because we are far away from having an already implemented EOSC. And we need to create the crave, the need of it. So that's why I disagree of hiding it.
Thanks. Maybe we can move to the next one because I don't think we have time. So this was an interesting discussion on this one. And then so let's move back to the take the lead statement. So the EOSC Association should take the lead on engagement activities at the EU level. Okay, so now it's time to hear from Volker.
Well, evidently, I think that the steering board, that the representatives of the countries have to have an engaging element there. And they, I mean, we are not representing ourselves. We are representing also the association members in the countries and try to work in their interests. So in that sense, I think at the EU level, I see rather the responsibility of the member states and associated countries to represent the interests.
Maybe.
And I just want to add, like, if I look at universities, I've been part of the Open Science Expert Group of the European University Association, and think that they as a stakeholder also have things to say there.
I mean, there's Suzanne by herself in this strongly agree position. So let's hear from her.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I think it depends on the question, because you said at the EU level, but what does it mean? Is it the EU in terms of policy or in terms of? Yeah, so I still strongly agree that actually the role of the EOSC Association, as it represents, it is the voice of the community, it must take the lead, because if we don't have that, that means, of course, we have the steering board, so that doesn't mean the work is doing only by the EOSC Association. But the steering board is not the researcher and the community who are involved. So we need to have a strong position of the EOSC Association to make sure that all the community is onboarded.
Does anybody in the agree field want to say something about it? We move to the next one. Okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, so let's get back to the dissemination aspect of EOSC and engagement. So official EOSC materials are needed to engage with the community in a standardized way.
There are no wrong answers.
There are no wrong answers. There are no wrong answers. So, okay, so I mean, since you've just spoken, I'll ask someone from the strongly agree, maybe Minna. Or maybe, okay, so, okay, Mike.
Okay, so because my opinion is this, strongly agree, because we have heard already today also that this communication is challenging, and then if we have a strong message, so I think that it would make a difference. So that's why it's important to have a because this is so messy in somehow, and if we can change something, being very consistent, so I think that would be help.
Yes. So because you said dissemination is typically not communication by itself, so it's not so generalized, is also focused, and I think why I mean Susanna has moved there, because it has a lot to do with the communities. We need identity, we need a core message. That's why I agree, but there are parts of those messages, common messages, that need to be tailored for the community, and there are messages different from for the providers, for the researchers. Those are highly educated and persons that need to know what's the reality for them, and it's a bit beyond communication. So that's it.
If you want to add something on this position.
Yeah, at least to explain why I'm alone. I think we can meet actually, because I agree with you. The issue is that there are different messages depending on the target. So this is why, and I'm here because I really don't like the word standardize. The EOSC we are here to represent a whole diversity in terms of discipline, location, domain, type of stakeholders, and so on. So as soon as we are speaking about standardization, we have the risk to lose the diversity, and this is why I disagree.
Thanks, everyone. Let's move to the next one. Okay, so universities and research infrastructures must have a dedicated EOSC interface. So basically, so there should be a specific person in each university and or research infrastructure as an EOSC interface.
So it's not a platform.
No, it's a person, yeah, sorry. Or an office, I mean, like someone that's the EOSC representative in the... Well, I mean, I see that only Volker has taken like a full, strongly agree position.
Yeah, because I take it like usually there's somebody on open science, and in open science I would see also the EOSC responsibility. So in that sense, I want somebody on open science in every university and at every research infrastructure.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's fine. Let's take it. That was the right answer, you see? 1 point for Volker. It was a trick question. Okay, so maybe this is the last one, right? I don't know. Yeah, we don't know. Maybe we can do that one. Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, so this one, I mean, so now there's lots of EOSC tripartite events happening. So this is actually probably a bit outdated, but let's see. So member states should organize at least one official open science event every year. I mean, I think this one is probably, so sorry, so the member states, EU member states, should organize at least one official open science event every year. Okay, so there's some movement, but let's hear from Philip as he's taken a strongly disagree position.
I think we are not going to reach our target group by these type of events. I think the dissemination has a lot to do with success stories, and so yeah, this is why another day for some, I don't know, a dog day, a science day, an open science day, I think that'd be too much.
Okay, so it's kind of the same position, I guess. So someone in the agree field wants to say something? Maybe, yeah,
it's a communication channel to have events. So I think that it's good to also engage with like a face-to-face events. And of course, there is always it's also a channel to create materials and so to use them, reuse them, and so on. Yes, it's a deadline.
Yeah, maybe like this week is the International Open Access Week. It has been there for ages and still a lot is going on in these weeks. So and like for in Belgium, every year we do something around the Open Access Week, but this is now broadened to open science, of course, but that's really coming out of the community. So it's things that we decide what we want to talk about. But every now and then, so every 2 years, it's a bigger one with like the national stakeholder, which is also regional stakeholders in Belgium, of course. It's a way to bring them together. And I know it's not, the researchers themselves don't really come, but representatives of the researchers of the Young Academy come, and it's interactive like that as well.
Okay, so maybe actually let's do a full round this time since it's the last one. I don't know, Volker, if you want to say something about it.
I just thought of 27 events you want to organize every year, and if something is always organized in a fixed way, then it very fast loses momentum. I think the first tripartite events, they are very, very efficient now. Let's see where there is really a need. I mean, I would rather go with each country deciding for themselves what is needed.
Yep.
But you're standing in the middle, so that's
no same here actually. And we have so you suggest the Open Science Conference, but there are also the FAIR event. There is the open access, so there are already enough, I think. So,
Christian, you want to close this?
Yes. So I'm taking it from a good side in the sense that what's the end of everything? The end is knowledge valorization, knowledge distribution is capitalizing on investments on research. And open science is one way to see it. National events are the only one with the capability of capturing also industry to see the good of open science, to allow them to understand that they can fish knowledge out of science repositories, and even governments, they can have a science-based policy making through that knowledge. But if you don't organize it at the national level, you don't have national actors there, because international events are a bit hard to capture this kind of audience, this local audience. And that's only, I mean, this is why I don't dislike to have national events. Of course, they have to be structured in a way that they will be the most useful. Otherwise, as Volker said, I mean, it's a repetition of the same thing, and it can lose traction. But the opening up to now, I mean, the ones that we have now, I mean, they are the first. So you sit on the table representatives of the ministry, of some universities, of a funding agency. I hope that in the future, when the table is cleared from all the doubts, they can engage other ministries of economic growth and industry. They can engage with actors that are from the productive side, from let's say the private sector also, from not only universities, not only researchers, but capitalizing on the knowledge that open science can provide. That's why I appreciate if national events can take place.
Thanks, everyone. So this was the last statement for today. Of course, no, actually, there's another one. Is this the best Spectrum panel you've ever joined? What's the first one? So it must be, right?
It has to.
Okay. No, okay. So with this, I thank you. So thanks for joining this experiment. And you'll see another one of these in the next couple of days. Thanks, everyone. So I'll just give the word back to Rob for some concluding instructions.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. That concludes our People and Culture track session. Just a reminder, so there were no wrong answers there, just perspectives. Okay, so don't hold them too hard to their opinions. Now, so after this conference, when we close, we will take a photo up in front. I think is that allowed? Can we? Yes, all on stage. Is that okay? Yes. Okay, so everyone, please, let's join us in the stage and let's take a quick photo. And then after this, we will go into our cocktail event where you're all invited. I'll just put the numbers. No, you can remove it now.